One of my favorite memories from my childhood was when my mom would take my sisters and I out on late-night stargazing adventures. We would drive out really, really far late at night and find a good dark spot and then look up at the stars and try to find constellations. We would look for Orion and the Big Dipper and the North Star, and it was just one of my favorite memories because I remember feeling so loved in those moments with my sisters and my mom. It wasn't until I was much older that I realized these late-night adventures weren't actually adventures at all. It was my mom's way of getting my sisters and I safely away from our abuser. Growing up, my family and I experienced domestic violence. It was something that impacted much of my life. There were times when my sisters and I had to hide in a closet or under our bed just to stay safe. A moment that defined me was when my mom, sisters, and I had to pick up in the middle of the night, wearing only the clothing on our back, leaving many of our favorite possessions behind, and we escaped our abuser. Eventually, we received help from a local domestic violence shelter. Although that time was very scary and very tumultuous, the thing that I remember most are the crisis counselors and the workers at that domestic violence shelter, and just how loving they were and how warm they were, and the compassion that they showed my family and I during that time. A few years later, we were faced with another obstacle, a house fire. I was in 3rd grade at the time, and I very vividly remember sitting in my classroom, and my teacher's teaching was interrupted at the moment because we heard a fire truck go by. I lived in a very, very small town, and of course, being in 3rd grade, we were very excited by any outside noise, and so we all always ran to the window whenever we heard a fire truck or a police car, and we would put our face up to the glass and try to see where the car was going. Never in a million years did I think that it was headed towards my house. Later that afternoon, my mom did not pick my sisters and I up from school. Instead, my church's pastor came and picked my sisters and I up, and she informed us that our house had caught fire earlier that day. But luckily, my mom was safe, and so were our animals. At the time, we had a few cats and dogs, and they survived as well, which was really good. I remember when we finally went back to the house because we wanted to see if we could salvage anything or how bad the damage was, and I very specifically remember finding my American Girl doll. That was my favorite doll at the time. And her face was melted and her hair was singed, and it just felt so devastating in that moment. But that's not the memory that sticks out to me the most. Instead, what I remember is, again, how people reached out and helped my family. People were dropping off clothing and food and just were constantly asking how they could help and in what way they could assist us, even complete strangers. We were out of our home for over a year as we lived with friends, in hotels, and even on the floor of a food pantry. Going from place to place without an official location to call home was extremely difficult, but we were together as a family, and that's all that mattered. Looking back, what impacted me the most was how people reached out. Again, so many people in the community reached out during our hardships. I'll never forget that compassion and kindness that was shown to us. They cared about our well-being, and they wanted to make sure that we were okay. And that is a feeling that I will always hold on to and will always try to share with others. Going through violence and tragedy at a young age was not easy, but as I got older, I decided that I could either let it define me or I could use it to make a difference. Now, giving back is my way of paying it forward. In 2009, at 12 years old, I started a 501c3 nonprofit organization called the Angels of God Community Outreach. My charity provides clothing, food, and more to those in need. We work with families and individuals who have fallen on hard times, whether they have experienced a house fire or domestic violence like my family, or maybe someone in the family just recently lost their job and they can no longer afford those basic necessities. It's also very heartwarming to go back to that same domestic violence shelter and now help the residents there. I feel like it's all come full circle, and seeing the workers there and now being able to actually help just feels so amazing. We work with social services, homeless shelters, and community leaders who refer clients to us. And then the clients are invited to come into our storefront and go shopping for free. So we don't sell anything at all. All of our services are free. And in addition to the clothing and food, which we do throughout the year, we also give out school supplies, which you can see up there. We have a great photo. And we give out Thanksgiving meals and Christmas toys. And throughout the year, we have a lot of really special seasonal projects as well. I love the fact that these families can come into the clothing closet and actually go shopping, because I know how difficult it can be to keep your dignity during these tough times. All of the clothing and donations that come through are just donated by individuals like you, people who are cleaning out their closet, or maybe when you go to the food store and picking up an extra box of cereal or a can of food and then donating it. That's how we get all of our services. I've learned that sometimes something as simple as a new outfit can put a smile on someone's face and can make them feel beautiful again, especially when they're going through tough circumstances. Although my organization has helped over 30,000 people to date, I wanted to share some individual stories. Some of these stories have really touched my heart and have stuck out in my mind, even though I've been doing this since 2009. Every day we just hear the most heartbreaking stories and then trying to help as best as we can. That's what we try to do. I also feel like I can deeply relate to a lot of the clients coming through, especially the children, and I think it's those stories that really tug at my heartstrings. Just a few weeks ago, I had a teenage girl actually personally pull me aside because she was a bit embarrassed to go up to some of our older volunteers, and she told me that all she had was tank tops to wear for gym class and just to wear in general. She only had tank tops, and she didn't have any bras. And so she was really humiliated and wasn't able to change during gym class because she didn't have anything under, and she was being bullied at school. And as she was telling me this story, I just had my heart breaking because I feel like that's such a necessity, and then to not have that as a teenage girl. We made sure that we were able to provide that and so much more for her and her family, and just making sure that she can keep her dignity during these tough times. It's such a basic thing. A lot of the services that we put out, clothing, food, these are things that we don't even think twice about. But then as I talk to these clients, it brings me back to that place when I was younger, and I just start thinking of all of those memories from when I was a child and my family was going through that. I think what impacted me the most about this girl was how her schooling was being affected. You know, she didn't want to go to school and she didn't want to go to her gym class because of the bullying that was going on. And so in the end, of course, we made sure that Angels of God was able to provide bras and clothing and all of that necessities to her. Another instance, again, where education was affected, was a 14-year-old girl. She had emailed me, and she was living in the local area where I'm from. And she told me that every month she pretends to be sick because she doesn't have access to pads and tampons. And so every month when she gets her period, she's too embarrassed to tell anyone. And unfortunately, her parents weren't providing it. They didn't have the financial means to provide it. And so again, we reached out and we made sure that she was able to get those feminine products because, again, that's something that's super important. And so I've realized now that Angels of God has gone beyond just food and clothing. We have been helping with so many different services, and it warms my heart to see the organization growing this much. These are situations that no child should have to go through, that no child should have to worry about. We have families where both parents are working, but maybe they're only making minimum wage, and unfortunately that's just not enough to provide. In closing, I want to tell you that even though I've been through some of these hardships, I would not change a thing. I was raised by an amazing woman, which is my mom, and she showed me what strong is. She showed me how to be courageous and how to work hard, and most importantly, how to be compassionate and giving a hand up to those in need. I think that's the whole mission of what I've started, just giving a hand up to those who need it. I think during these times, it is extremely, extremely important just to spread kindness and to have compassion for others. So now I have a very special challenge for all of you. I want to challenge you to give a hand up to someone in need. It can be something as simple as holding the door open for someone or paying someone a compliment. It can be something as big as volunteering at a homeless shelter or cleaning out your closet. I know we all have clothing and shoes and dresses that we don't wear anymore, or maybe that don't fit us anymore. And so going through your closet and donating those items to people who truly need it can make the biggest difference for someone, and I know that firsthand. So again, maybe you have a pair of shoes, a jacket, or even a prom gown that you don't plan on using again. I think the biggest idea is just to be compassionate and to help others. Even if it's a small action, like I said, giving a compliment to someone, that can make the biggest difference in someone's day. If you do want to do the challenge, I would absolutely love if you reached out via social media. I have my personal links up here and then also my charities links as well. So if you want to visit those websites and maybe tweet me or post on Instagram and let me know what you did, I would absolutely love that. Again, thank you all so, so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Stay here.
Okay.
I know you want to escape. Stay with me. Wasn't that incredible? I mean, just this story to hear from you, Katelyn. And one of the things I was thinking when I'm listening is that with that much trauma going on in early life, and I know as a child myself, some things you kind of accept, you think that's just how it is. Other things you challenge, but you're not sure how to change it. But at such a young age, to decide to say, well, I'm going to do something about this. How do you think that came about, that was your decision and not one to kind of be cross and angry? And did that decision help you overcome any sort of bitterness that you felt?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big impact was definitely my mom. You know, she always just taught us compassion and kindness, and I feel like I had so many great role models from the counselors that I was working with at the domestic violence shelter, and having those good influences, I think, were really crucial in healing. And then also when I did start the organization and beginning to help others, I felt like my story kind of started to come full circle, and it was a part of the healing process, being able to reach out and realize that, you know, we all can give a hand up and we all can help each other. And, you know, we all have the capability of doing that. And even though for the longest time I had felt like a victim, I realized that I didn't have to be subjected to that label.
Yeah, so. And some children take that label into adulthood. What would you say to adults who felt that they didn't have agency to do anything? How would you kind of encourage people to take the risk and try and, as you say, sort of help someone?
Yeah, I mean, I think that starting small, like I mentioned, you know, reaching out and, you know, asking someone how they're doing or giving a compliment, holding the door open, these small things, just adding positivity to your life through these small actions and trying to find healing within yourself, I think is very crucial as well, and that's what I would tell them.
You're amazing. Is your mum here?
She is,
Where's
actually.
Your mum? Where is she?
She's right there.
You're awesome. Give this woman a round of applause. What an amazing example.
Yes.
This is what excellent parenting looks like. Well done, Mum. And thank you, Katelyn.
Thank
Absolutely
you so
incredible.
much.
Bless you, my
Thank
darling.
you.
Go be awesome. Thank you so much. So, do you see how we've set the tone already? This is where we're going. Amazing people coming up, sharing amazing things.